Indonesia is on fire. Anger over parliamentary perks has ignited the deadliest unrest of Prabowo's rule. Jakarta's streets burn with chants, sirens, and Molotov flames. And across the archipelago, rage spreads, fueled by inequality, tragedy, and whispers of foreign hands. At least 20 people remain missing after violent protests erupted in Indonesia, triggered by outrage over lavish perks for lawmakers and escalating into broader anger against police, a rights group said Tuesday. Military units were deployed across Jakarta, where police checkpoints and citywide patrols kept traffic unusually subdued. Schools shifted to online classes, and civil servants were told to work from home. While gatherings in the capital eventually dispersed after the president warned demonstrations must end by sundown, unrest spread elsewhere. In Gorontalo, police used water cannons and tear gas against crowds. In Bandung, Molotov cocktails were thrown at a provincial council building. Similar rallies were reported in Palembang, Banjarmasin, Yogyakarta, and Makassar. The protests began last week in response to housing allowances for lawmakers nearly 10 times Jakarta's minimum wage. Tensions deepened after footage showed a police van running over a young delivery driver, prompting investigations and possible dismissals of 2 officers, according to National Police Accountability Bureau head Agus Wijayanto. From Geneva, United Nations human rights spokeswoman Ravina Shamdasani said her office was closely monitoring events and urged authorities to investigate the use of disproportionate force, emphasising dialogue as the path forward.
We are following closely the spate of violence in Indonesia in the context of nationwide protests over parliamentary allowances, austerity measures, and alleged use of unnecessary or disproportionate force by security forces. We stress the importance of dialogue to address the public's concerns.
Public anger has persisted despite a government reversal on the perks. Suwardi, a 60-year-old snack seller in Jakarta, told reporters the government will not listen to the people's pleas and added that Indonesians have always been lied to.
The Indonesian government is a mess. The cabinet and parliament will not listen to the people's pleas. We have always been lied to.
The political fallout has already shaken markets, with the Jakarta stock index slipping before a modest recovery and forced President Probowo to cancel a planned trip to China. Indonesia's National Police Chief General Listio Sigit Prabowo says investigators are probing the perpetrators and financiers behind recent violent protests. He praised the Kuitang Mobile Brigade for defending its base during 4 days of attacks and confirmed over 3,000 arrests nationwide. 55 people face charges, while hundreds have been released as questioning continues across 15 provinces. Protests in Indonesia earlier this month forced President Prabowo Subianto to cancel a planned trip to China and skip the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit. The unrest, sparked by economic grievances and anger over parliamentary perks, has since taken on unexpected symbolism. Across Jakarta and other cities, protesters have been seen displaying the pirate flag from the Japanese anime One Piece. The symbol, a skull with a straw hat, represents resistance to tyranny in the series. Its sudden appearance in Indonesia mirrors tactics observed in other regions, raising questions of outside influence. Geopolitical analyst Angelo Giuliano told Sputnik that the adoption of this imagery suggests possible coordination from abroad. He points to the National Endowment for Democracy, which has supported Indonesian media since the 1990s, and George Soros's Open Society Foundations, long active across Southeast Asia. Giuliano argues their financial networks may be shaping the protests in subtle ways.
This ties to a recent Indo-Pacific focus amid tensions like the Cambodia-Thailand conflict, hinting at geopolitical motives.
Jeff J. Brown, a Beijing-based author and commentator, has argued that US-linked organizations often align with Washington's Indo-Pacific strategy. He notes that similar symbolic tactics have appeared in protests from Hong Kong to Bangkok, often coinciding with geopolitical flashpoints. Brown suggests the Indonesian unrest may also serve broader regional interests amid tensions stretching from Cambodia to Thailand.
It is the exact same playbook happening in Serbia. The G7 wants another US-backed dictator, like Suharto of old. It is the first Southeast Asian country to join BRICS and has been openly cooperating with China in the latter's Global Belt and Road Initiative. From the standpoint of the Imperial West, all of this adds up to a giant bullseye on Indonesia's back, a very worthy target to attack with a Western concocted color revolution.
While the grievances on the ground are real, the unusual symbolism and reported involvement of external organizations highlight deeper questions. Analysts say the protests are not only a domestic challenge for Prabowo's government, but also part of a wider contest over influence in Southeast Asia. Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto is seeking a way forward, urging the House of Representatives to immediately deliberate on the draft law, RU, on asset confiscation and the draft law on manpower. The announcement came through the President of the Confederation of All Indonesian Trade Unions, KSPSI, Andi Gani Nenawea, after he and interfaith leaders met Prabowo at the State Palace in Jakarta on Monday.
And he promised, firstly, that the asset confiscation bill would be discussed immediately, as well as the employment bill requested by workers.
He further noted,
"The President asked the Speaker of the House of Representatives to discuss it immediately with the parties, and they agreed to discuss it immediately."
During the meeting, Andi voiced strong union support for Probowo, but underlined peaceful action.
"We emphasize that we are not behind the President. We stand beside him. We oppose rioters."
Meanwhile, Syed Iqbal, President of the Confederation of Indonesian Trade Unions, KSPI, highlighted the need to protect the people's right to protest.
Of course, this demonstration must be constructive, constitutional, nonviolent, and not anarchic. And on that point, the President agrees.
Still, many remain skeptical, questioning whether Prabowo's promises will truly deliver meaningful reforms for workers. It remains uncertain where the protests will head next, whether they will spiral further into violence and repression or push the government into making concessions. Either way, the unrest marks the most serious leadership challenge for President Prabowo Subianto since taking office in 2024. Analysts say the protests are a major test for the Indonesian government.
It is a major test. Can he placate the protesters and bring an end to rolling demonstrations while not resorting to excessive state violence or repression? This is the question.
Dr. Warburton also agrees that the significance of these protests is very different to what has been witnessed over the past 2 decades.
There have been waves of popular protest in recent years, often led by progressive students and activists. The current demonstrations are different. The grievances run deeper and are likely more broadly felt. The protests reflect people's sense of economic insecurity and pent-up resentment toward the greed and excesses of their elected officials.
Once a feared Special Forces commander accused of grave human rights abuses, Prabowo has sought to recast his image in recent years. His campaign leaned heavily on cute TikTok videos to court younger voters, but many Indonesians have not forgotten his past as former Indonesian president and dictator Suharto's son-in-law and his rapid rise under an authoritarian regime. His electoral victory last year was met with unease, and student anger resurfaced in February over budget cuts to health and education. Having witnessed how student protests helped topple former Suharto, Probowo understands their power, making his response now a pivotal moment for his presidency.